It's time for the Rip City Drive, featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing. Brought to you by Goldberg Jones. Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE.
Pat, I just like your opinion on who's going to win the Final Four.
I like Arizona.
I think Duke's going to win it, so you.
Arizona, I think, is the team that's going to take Oklahoma. I think those are the two best teams. And just in terms of the Pac-10 play, they're the best team I've seen in the Pac-10 since Oregon State's great team of 80-81 that won 26 in a row before losing its last two. The team that featured Steve Johnson, Ray Bloom, Mark Radford, Charlie Sitton, and Lester Connard. Let's go back to the phone lines. Line 8, you're on the air.
Pat, I just like your opinion on who's going to win the Final Four.
I like...
All right, 3 o'clock. What's going on, my friends? Chad here. Hope you're enjoying your Friday NBA All-Star game set for Sunday from San Francisco. The Trailblazers will get a week off, who will kick off the second half of their season Thursday night at Moda Center against the Lakers. Tip-off scheduled for 7. Elsewhere, according to reports, Shaquille O'Neal has agreed to a new deal to remain on Inside the NBA with Kenny, Charles, and Ernie Johnson. Barkley will also remain and end his talks with NBC and Amazon. And the show next year will be sourced to ESPN when the new TV deal for the NBA kicks in. From the NFL, Colorado star and Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter is going to enter the NFL Combine as a defensive back. He played both corner and wide receiver in college. College hoops, Oregon State falls at UAP last night. They'll host Pacific tomorrow at 3 on 1190 KEX. And the Ducks to host Rutgers on Sunday. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing is coming at you right now.
It's time for the Rip City Drive, featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing. Brought to you by Goldberg Jones. Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE.
Pat, I just like your opinion on who's going to win the Final Four.
I like Arizona.
I think Duke's going to win it, so you.
Arizona, I think, is the team that's going to take Oklahoma. I think those are the two best teams. And just in terms of the Pac-10 play, they're the best team I've seen in the Pac-10 since Oregon State's great team of 80-81 that won 26 in a row before losing its last two. The team that featured Steve Johnson, Ray Bloom, Mark Radford, Charlie Sitton, and Lester Connard. Let's go back to the phone lines. Line 8, you're on the air.
Pat, I just like your opinion on who's going to win the Final Four.
I like Arizona.
I think Duke's going to win it, so you.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
All right, Michael Shacker's a funny man. He placed Pat Lafferty, longtime Trailblazers television broadcaster, in the open when some youngster decided to rip off an F-bomb on him for saying Arizona was going to win the Final Four. And the other guy was a Duke fan. Pat Lafferty was the play-by-play guy on TV, and he worked with Steve Jones for years. They were the crew that were doing the TV when I moved out here from Colorado back in the 80s. And this, of course, is music from the Karate Kid soundtrack. I've got to tell you, if you have not watched Cobra Kai, I went through and finished it out last night. I knew that the new episodes were going to drop this week. I just didn't know what the day was. And Shacker was like, hey, have you seen the episodes? He watched them the first night that they dropped at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And so last night I committed my evening to finishing it out. And it was awesome. The finale is phenomenal. So if you haven't watched Cobra Kai, or if you have watched Cobra Kai, you need to watch the final episodes. I've got to give those guys props. In so many ways, that show shouldn't work, but it was an epic for Netflix. Absolutely terrific. I think it started out on YouTube Red and eventually went to Netflix, and I enjoyed the entire setup. It was phenomenal. And the finale last night was great with John Lawrence, Daniel LaRusso, and, of course, the rest of the crew. So if you haven't watched it, check it out. What a fabulous show that was. 6 seasons. And I'm a big fan of nostalgia. I like things that take me back to the days when I was younger. And I would say the 2 perfect examples of things that shouldn't work but were absolute grand slams. Cobra Kai would be one. The Karate Kid movies were some of my absolute favorites growing up. The original was phenomenal. And I watched it like a billion times when I was younger. I was a big fan of number 2 and number 3 as well. And then when the Cobra Kai series came out, I was just blown away that they were even considering the concept. And I think Ralph Macchio is going to be in a Karate Kid Legends movie this summer. I'm in, 100% in on that. So Cobra Kai is one that shouldn't work, but it was phenomenal. And the other one that connects me to my younger days is, of course, Creed, which is an extension of the Rocky movies. Michael B. Jordan is phenomenal as Creed's son. And, of course, Sylvester Stallone was in the first 2. They've already done 3 Creed movies. Those movies should not work, but yet they're phenomenal. And it's a way to connect with the younger days. So I love the Creed movies, and Cobra Kai is awesome. It was one of those moments last night. You ever had this before where you're watching a show or you have an experience, maybe you go to a game or a trip or whatever the case may be, and it's so good in the moment that when it's over, you're like, oh, no, it's over. And you wish you could go back and relive it all again. I wish tonight was last night so I could go back and watch those episodes again. It was awesome. So props to Shacker for getting me on that. And Cobra Kai is an absolute win. Phenomenal. So good. And Billy Zabka is epic in those shows. He steals the show. He's great. Absolutely terrific in the Cobra Kai series. So if you haven't checked it out, you should probably do so. Now, I did mention in the update, this is good news for all of us, that Shaquille O'Neal has agreed to a new deal with Turner, and Charles Barkley is ending conversations. He was flirting with NBC and Amazon, who are new TV partners of the NBA. When that new deal kicks in next year, he's going to remain at Turner as well. So the entire show of Charles, Kenny, Ernie Johnson, Shaq, inside the NBA remains intact. And I think they're going to source it out to ESPN next year. And that's great for all of us. It is the one show in sports where the guys on the show deliver entertainment and unfiltered commentary. Whether you agree with the commentary or not, whether Shaq and Charles actually watch the games or not, they share their honest take on things. And it's wildly fascinating. You know, I've said this about Charles Barkley. I don't agree with everything that Charles says, but I do respect the fact that he says what's on his mind. And I think as I get older, maybe you can relate to this or feel the same. All I care about with people now is I want genuine. I want genuine. Just tell me what you think. What's on your mind? How do you see the world? Don't sugarcoat things. Just be you. And that's why I love Charles so much, because he is himself and he just shares his mind. So whether you agree or disagree, you know where he's coming from. And that's why I am now with people. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what walk of life you come from. But if you're genuine, I'm probably going to be down with you. And I appreciate that. I respect that. And I've got friends like that who just tell me what it is. You don't have to agree on everything. Who cares? But Charles is very genuine. That's a good show. Very good show. I watched him last night. Ernie Johnson's an absolute class act. Like one of the truly great television broadcasters. Super nice guy. And the chemistry that exists between that crew, phenomenal. And Kenny Smith, Like, I can barely understand anything that guy says. He's all over the map with his analysis, but they complement each other. He and Charles get on one another. I like it when Shaq gets butthurt when Charles starts making fun of him. Ernie's got to try and steer the ship when those guys go crazy, which is constant. It's wildly fascinating. Very good. Very good show. So that's going to be good for all of us because what you don't want is some type of show that's watered down without any real takes and it's all kind of manufactured. That's not good. That's not good television. It's not something we tune into. And frankly, with the way a lot of coverage is with sports, we need people to share their honest take and to not be afraid to say things that might hurt people's feelings and be critical. You know, sometimes you got to be critical on things. It's not always, there are times where you got to call people out for their lack of performance or inability to get the job done or poor decision making. You know, like the Dallas Mavericks. They deserve to be called out for one of the dumbest trades in the history of the world. By trading Luka to the Lakers in exchange for an aging star and one first-round pick. You got to criticize stuff like that. Now, if it works out and Dallas goes back-to-back and wins championships, then I'll eat my words. But we all know that that's not going to happen. Anthony Davis is not even playing right now. So that's what's going on with the NBA. The All-Star Game is this weekend. I did see, I don't know if you saw this, but Chris Haynes, our good friend Chris Haynes from, well, he was right here in Portland and still has connections to the area and worked for NBC Sports Northwest and covered the Trailblazers and then went on to bigger and better things, doing some stuff with TNT, Bleacher Report. He's been all over the place. Well, he put out a report today, and it's fascinating because there's truth to it if it were done right, if it were actually done this way. There is truth to it. But it's funny to me that the NBA's gotten to this point. So Chris Haynes is reporting that there's going to be a meeting with the players and the NBA Players Union before the All-Star Game on Sunday to express the importance of competition. And on top of that, to make sure that players compete and compete hard so that they can improve the product and have better ratings and have people tune back in and care about what's going on. Now, think about that. How crazy is it that you have to have players get together before the game and discuss how important it is to compete? Haynes reports sources, the league and players union will meet together with players on Sunday prior to the All-Star Game to highly stress the importance of competing for fans and for the business. And that's one of Haynes' latest briefs. And that's what he's calling it now, Haynes Briefs, which is a very good name. Nice play on words there, my man. But think about that. The league and the players union to meet together with players on Sunday prior to the All-Star Game to highly stress the importance of competing for fans and for the business. So I've got two thoughts on this. One, it's a shame that the union and the league have to meet with the players to stress the importance of competing when they make many millions of dollars, a king's ransom to play a kid's game. And the players union and the league have to get together with the players to stress the importance of competing for the fans and for the business. I mean, that should just come without being said. I'm being paid many millions. I was voted into the All-Star Game. I'm going to show up and compete and play my ass off. That shouldn't even be said. That should just be a given. But it's not anymore. The league used to be different in the way that the All-Star Game was handled. But it's devolved into really just a mess over the last 20-plus years. They show up. It's like a layup drill. Guys don't defend. They don't compete. They're not really putting pressure on one another. It's just not a very good product, that's all. And it's unfortunate it's gotten to that point. When I was growing up, the way the All-Star Game was built, the first couple of quarters, 2.5 quarters, there was more, freelance and up and down type play. They were still competing, but you got to see some of the stars like MJ or Isaiah, Magic, do their thing. But once the fourth quarter hit, it was go time. And the players would dial it up on defense. They would compete and get after one another. It was a very good product. The NBA All-Star Game used to be awesome, and I love watching it. But over time, it's become unwatchable because the guys don't compete, they don't defend, and they don't really stress the importance of that competition and trying to win. But I can tell you this, if the players were to just go back to the basics and play the game with a desire to win and compete, it would be a very good product because the league is filled with a bunch of great players right now. And if they just went out with that attitude of, hey, we're going to compete, we're going to show up, and we're going to grind and get after it, and in the fourth quarter it's going to be go time, it's going to be a very good game. The question is, will they be willing to commit to that? As I've said before, if the players don't care, I'm not going to care. If the players don't show up ready to go, I'm not going to show up and watch. And I'm sure a lot of you are in the same boat. And I'm not even criticizing them. But I think it's just do it. Just compete. Play to win and get after one another. People want to see that stuff. I get off on the greats going head-to-head and competing with one another, challenging one another. It's awesome. But when you don't do it and it's a layup drill, I ain't got time for that. I'll go back and watch from start to finish Cobra Kai instead of the All-Star game. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We're going to talk a little golf in the upcoming season with PGA Dave at 420. And then my man Brad Botkin, CBS Sports. He came on last time the day before Luka was traded. I can't wait to get his take on the madness in the NBA. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, Yankees manager Aaron Boone is a little bit spicy right now as we get ready for a brand new season. Here are the comments. He was asked about the Dodgers, kind of making fun of them after falling in the World Series, and here's what Aaron Boone had to say. Take a listen to this. I'll have it for you in just a second. Take a listen to Chris Taylor. Here's what he was upset about. So Chris Taylor of the Dodgers and Mookie Betts, there were a number of players there. They're hanging out. Chris Taylor's having a couple of pops. He sounded like he might have had maybe one or two too many, but he was asked about the meltdown in the fifth inning by the Yankees when they gave up 5 runs on 3 errors, and we saw Aaron Judge drop a ball. And before you know it, the Dodgers are World Series champions with another championship. Take a listen to Chris Taylor kind of making fun of the Yankees for letting it run down their leg.
Everybody saw it, right? So to me, I mean, we're all kind of thinking it. They kind of down their leg, right? You know, they were pressing like it was like one thing after the next. So I think our energy in the dugout was kind of feeding off that. It was like, all we got to do is put the ball in play right, you know? Like,
yeah, that's a fact.
And we knew the big hit was going to come at some point, you know? So it's sort of just passing the baton to the next guy. And, and then after Teo hit that double, and I feel like the whole momentum, everything just shifted, and we all kind of knew. And then even after they scored one, like, I don't think anybody was worried.
Yeah, we didn't blink an eye at that.
Yeah, we knew we had it.
All right. That is what Chris Taylor had to say. And if you go back to Game 5 of the World Series, you're up 5 runs. You got a chance to send it back to L.A. You're playing good baseball, and you give up 5 runs in the 5th. I don't know how else to classify that than a choke chop, because that's exactly what it was, where the Dodgers took advantage of every single mistake. So you had Aaron Judge drop a fly ball that was hit to him, and then Will Smith hit a ground ball to short, but Anthony Volpe's effort, he failed. And he bounced a ball to Jazz Chisholm at third. He couldn't hold on to get the force out, and before you know it, the bases are loaded. 3 errors, 5 runs, series over. And, of course, the Dodgers are just pointing out the obvious. Here's Aaron Boone.
Don't like hearing that, but the reality is, you know, we didn't play our best in the series, and they won. So, you know, they have that right to say whatever. Hopefully we're in that position next year and handle things with a little more class.
Oh, my gosh. Please shut up, Aaron Boone. Just accept it. You took the L. You guys melted down. Everyone knew you were a poor defensive team, and it came back to bite you. The one thing I learned about covering the Giants when I was down in San Francisco, when they were winning championships with Bruce Bochy, they had a very simple philosophy, and that was good pitching, good defense, and timely hitting. They were great defensively. They didn't make those type of mistakes on those type of stages, and that's why they're able to – big reason as to why they're able to win, 3 World Series over a very short period of time. Good defense. It's critical. Good defense is everywhere, right? Look at what the Eagles did to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl because of their defense and their execution. And the Dodgers just laughing it up to another championship. It's got to be frustrating for Boone because not only did he lose the World Series and the Dodgers made fun of him, but now they have gone out and loaded up. And the Dodgers look like an unstoppable force. And the Yankees are losing guys. How are they going to recover and get back and have a chance? Because you know the Dodgers are going to be there.
Everybody saw it, right? So to me, I mean, we're all kind of thinking it. They kind of down their leg, right? You know, they were pressing like it was like one thing after the next. So I think our energy in the dugout was kind of feeding off that. It was like, all we got to do is put the ball in play right, you know? Like,
yeah, that's a fact.
And we knew the big hit was going to come at some point, you know, so it's sort of just passing the baton to the next guy. And, and then after Teo hit that double, and I feel like the whole momentum, everything just shifted, and we all kind of knew. And then even after they scored one, like, I don't think anybody was worried.
Yeah, we didn't blink an eye at that.
Yeah, we knew we had it.
All right, there you go. So good. It's so good. And it sucks, man. Like, Aaron Judge is a cool dude and a great player, and yet he is going to be made fun of forever because of that drop ball in the World Series. That's what makes sports such great drama, is that in those moments on that stage, that's what people remember. So if you do something amazing, you'll never be forgotten. If you do something awful, you'll never be forgotten. It's those moments in sports that we live for. And the pressure on that stage and how guys react to it, how you handle it. What's the response, right? It's the best. And Freddie Freeman, I mean, he was on fire in the World Series, super clutch. I mean, he was awesome at the plate. I'm going to remember that forever. Kirk Gibson, his home run in '88, I'll never forget because of where it came from and on what stage it was. So there you go. Dodgers have built a super team. I think they're going to get 120 and surpass the Mariners of '01. And the Yankees are butthurt because they blew it in the World Series. They choked because their defense was awful.
Don't like hearing that, but the reality is, we didn't play our best in the series, and they won. So, they have that right to say whatever. Hopefully we're in that position next year and handle things with a little more class.
All right, Aaron. There was nothing in what Chris Taylor said that was not classy. Not at all. He just pointed out the obvious. He pointed out what all of us saw in the World Series. The Yankees crapping down their leg. Travis Demers is a big Yankee fan. I talk to him about this stuff all the time. He would happily tell me that the Yankees choked and they blew it because they're a bad defensive team. And the Dodgers knew if they just put the ball in play that they would give themselves a chance because the Yankees might do exactly what they did. Now, I mentioned the All-Star game this weekend. Sean and Sandy tells me, hey, Chad, Daytona 500 epitomizes Americana and is truly one of the most iconic events since its beginning. Way more iconic and better than the All-Star game, in my most unhumble opinion, Brother Chad. Well, I like the Daytona 500, and I do watch racing, and I've gotten into Formula One over the last few years because of my buddy Steve, who's a big racing fan. But I'm not a motorhead, and there's still some aspects to the sport that I don't understand, but I'm trying to gain a better understanding, like with the technology and how the pit crews work and how the cars operate. But I don't have any particular drivers that I am attached to. And I think for me, regardless of sport, like if I have a personal interest in somebody, if I've got a connection on some level, that helps draw me into the sport. For example, Bryson DeChambeau. Like, I love to play golf, but I watch Bryson, and I'm fascinated by Bryson because I like him. And what did it for me with Bryson was his YouTube channel. I used to think Bryson was a douche because he was in the way that he handled himself on the course in the earlier part of his career. But he started up his YouTube channel, and he does all these different challenges, like Break 60. He played with President Trump. He's played with a variety of different people. He was out there with Paige Spiranek. And by opening himself up and having a camera out there on the course when he's doing these different challenges, and you get a chance to see what he's like, his personality, his story, where he's come from, how hard he works, the science that he puts behind his game with the golf swing and the technology and everything. It's amazing. And so I got a chance to know him by watching his YouTube videos, and now I'm a big fan. And so I watch him in tournaments. I'll tune in just to watch Bryson because I'm fascinated by what he's got going on. I think another example would probably be tennis. I was a huge fan of Andre Agassi, and I would watch every one of his matches because I knew his story. He was kind of in my wheelhouse. I grew up watching him when he was young, and then I followed him throughout his career when he was older. And I love Ags. Ags was great. Also a big fan of who is the other tennis player? Rafael Nadal. Love his story. Have a personal connection to him. Love watching him play. He's the best player on clay in the history of the game. I think Rafi on clay is like one of the most dominant athletes of all time, so I watch him. And I have that connection because I want to see him do well, so I'll watch. But with racing, I just don't have a connection to any drivers yet. And I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get to that point, but I'm just not at that point yet. But my buddy Steve is big on racing, and he's big on Formula One, and he's big on NASCAR. He likes to watch Daytona. We've watched the Indy 500 together. So we'll do a lot of different things, and I'm trying to grasp it a little bit more. As I told you, I go back and forth on sports. I fall in and out of love with different sports. Like the NBA was my number one for an extended period of time. The NFL, right now it's college football. I used to watch a lot of tennis and a lot of golf. I'm not, my interests are varied, similar to music. I listen to a lot of different genres. But with sports, I'm always looking for new sports or new interests to get involved in because it's stimulating to me to get into different forms of competition and what's going on. Like my workout partner, Luke, he runs and has been doing this now for a couple of years, Spartan races. I play golf constantly. He does Spartan races. So I'm getting into Spartan races because he and I work out together. I see the passion that he's got for it. And so I've done more research and studying on the Spartan races to gain a better understanding of what he's dealing with and what he's going through. In fact, he's got one coming up next month in March down in Las Vegas. So what I did is I set him up with my boy Steve. They know each other. So he's going to go down and he'll stay at my friend Steve's house. And so he's going to be close to the event so he can, drive out, do the event, and then be able to get back to the airport and go. But he'll stay with Steve. But I'm trying to gain a better understanding there. I'm always searching for new things to be a fan of. But racing is good, but I need a connection. But the drivers, I'm just not a motorhead. My brother's big time motorhead. He loves it. He can't get enough of it. And of course, I grew up in Oklahoma. I had, people in my family who raced. So it's a big deal back, when you get down in the South and stuff like that. But that's where we're at. So we'll see how things shake out. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. If you want to jump on board, you can find me on social, at Chad in Rip City, at Chad in Rip City. I want to encourage everyone, go to ripcityradio.com, our website. And if you go to the calendar page on ripcityradio.com, you're going to find the link for our raffle right now that we're doing for ALS Northwest. So if you go to our calendar page, you'll see the little story there. 50-50 raffle fundraiser for ALS Northwest. If you hit that, there's a link in there that takes you right to the spot where you can buy tickets. And you can purchase tickets right now. 400 tickets for 100, 100 tickets for 50, 25 tickets for 25, or you can get 5 tickets for 10. And it gives you a chance to win some money, but also we're going to raise money for ALS Northwest. And it's going to go on for another 25 days. We'll announce the winning ticket number in March. So you've got a chance to win. But most importantly, even if you just buy 5 tickets, every dollar that we raise is going to benefit ALS Northwest. And the reason why it's important to me, for 2 reasons. One, my grandfather, my mom's dad, his name was Don Luckstead. He passed away from ALS, and he had it for years. I never had a chance to see my grandfather walk, and I never heard him talk. He could make noises like groans or verbal noises to get our attention. But when I was old enough to remember him, he was already confined to a chair. And he used a typewriter that was sitting on the table right next to where he sat in the living room. And that's how he would communicate with us. And I think I mentioned this before, but the times where he would type letters to us, it could be simple things like I love you, or it's great to see you, or you're getting big. Or if there was a movie coming on HBO that he thought was inappropriate, he would type a message to tell me and my brother to leave the living room because he didn't want us to have our minds polluted. A lot of Richard Pryor movies on back then on HBO. So we'd do that. We would hang out and watch TV together. He was a big golf fan. He played golf before he got sick. And he was a music fan. And he'd have me play records that he had in the living room. He had one of those, I don't know, the old record players or stereos that people had in their house. They were like massive pieces of furniture. So this thing looked like almost like a coffee table or some type of end table, but there was a little, panel on the top that you would flip open, and the record player was in there. So I would put, some of the country records down for him. We'd play music and stuff. But the hardest thing that I had to watch when I was younger because of my grandpa's ALS was my grandma. Her life was dedicated to caring for him. And she didn't do anything on any day until he was up, bathed, shaved, fed, cleaned, and had everything he needed for his day, and then she could proceed about her day. And it was like that every single day. So she had to get up in the morning, get him out of bed, drop him in the wheelchair, wheel him into the bathroom, shave him, bathe him, brush his teeth, do everything for him because he couldn't do anything. And she did this day after day after day. And she actually passed away before he did. So I saw the suffering that was involved, not just with him, but, for the people that have to care for those who have ALS, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And the costs are pretty extreme. And so what ALS Northwest does is they help bridge the gap between what the insurance covers, what it doesn't, so people can have access to, maybe a wheelchair or a power chair so that people can get around, because obviously transportation is important. Maybe it's some type of additions or the house being retrofitted to accommodate someone with ALS. There's a lot of things like that where ALS Northwest can step up, and they've got the programs to be able to help people get what they need. And then last year, Mike Lynch, a colleague and a very nice guy who worked in radio here in town, who was doing the Trailblazer studio work, he was diagnosed with ALS. And it was pretty scary because he was having issues on air when he was doing the show, speaking and having his words come out, on time and without slurring. And he didn't know what was going on. So he went and got some tests run, and he was diagnosed with ALS. And so from there, I was like, gosh, that is just absolutely brutal. I mean, horrifying news. So I was like, what can we do to help? And so we connected with ALS Northwest and came up with this idea. Well, last year we did the Chillin' for a Cause, where we did the show from the cooler over there across the freeway from where we're at right now at the Jackson's Food Mark. And it was cold. I got to be honest with you, I froze my balls off. And in the final hour of the show, I started twitching. You know how when you get cold, you're like your leg or your arms or whatever, they shake and you can't stop it? I got cold. So we did that show to raise money. And this year we're doing the raffle. So if you go to the website, go to the calendar page, you'll find the link for the ALS raffle. Hit that. Again, 400 tickets for 100. It's very reasonable. 100 tickets for 50, 25 for 25, or you can get 5 tickets for 10. And every dollar raised will benefit ALS Northwest. Plus, it gives you a chance to win a portion of the pot to put some dollars in your pocket. So it's a great way to participate, and you're doing something that's awesome because you're going to be helping families here in the area who are dealing with ALS, because it's brutal. Absolutely, it's awful. And I feel horrible for Mike Lynch because he was living out his dream. He wanted to work for the Trailblazers so bad, and he finally got the opportunity, and then it was ripped from him because of something out of his control, because of the ALS diagnosis. And, it's horrible. What do you say to someone when they've been essentially given a death sentence? Oh, man, I'm sorry, I feel so bad, or I'll pray for you. Now, I think praying for someone is very powerful and can make a tremendous difference. But I tried to think of something tangible where, we can make a difference. So this is your chance to help out and participate. Go to ripcityradio.com, hit the calendar page. You'll find the link for ALS Northwest 50/50 raffle. And it's on for another 25 days. And then we'll announce the winning number in early March. And then, boom, we'll be set. And you can make a difference. All right, coming up on the show, so PGA Dave's coming up at 4:20. I'm getting the golf itch, and I want to talk some golf about the upcoming season. I know Tiger has pulled out of the Genesis Invitational after the passing of his mother. We'll get his take on the upcoming majors, and we'll take a look ahead. He's also a big Bills fan, so I want to get his take on the Bills and how they came up short in the AFC title game once again. What's it going to take for the Bills and Josh Allen to get over on Kansas City? And then at 5:20, Brad Bakken covers the NBA for CBS. We'll talk to him about the Luka trade and what he thinks about the rest of the way with Jimmy Butler in Golden State, Oklahoma City, now that they're healthy. Are the Lakers going to be able to make a run in the Western playoffs? We'll hit all of that. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. I'm Chad Doing. You got the Rip City Drive. It's pretty amazing that Shacker played this song out of the commercial break. I was just listening to a live version from 2024. This, of course, is Men at Work, and Colin Hay is the man behind the music. He's the lead singer. And I saw him at concert. He was also a part of Ringo Starr's All-Star Band and still plays music with him. But Colin Hay is a very fascinating figure. In fact, I just pulled up the video on YouTube. For those of you who are down with music or you like, some of the stories behind the music, there's a documentary on YouTube, and it's free. And if you just put in Colin Hay documentary, it'll pop up. It's called Colin Hay Waiting for My Real Life, the full documentary. It's like an hour and 24 minutes. But his story and the ride that he went through from the rise to fame with Men at Work back in the 80s up into what he's doing now, it's a pretty awesome story. And it's pretty cool because Men at Work's going to be back on concert tour this year. They're doing a show with Toto and Christopher Cross. They're actually playing up at the amphitheater in Clark County on August 30th. They got shows in Vegas. They're going to be doing shows all over. And, of course, Steve Lukather, the head man for Toto, also was a part of Ringo's All-Star Band. So he and Colin have a connection there. I've seen Colin Hay with Ringo. I've seen Toto in person multiple times. That's my buddy Steve's favorite band. And I saw Christopher Cross down in Reno back in 2019. It was like November of 2019. And it was the anniversary of his first album, which won a Grammy. And he was terrific. And I've seen a variety of different interviews with Christopher Cross. One of the most recent ones he did that I would recommend you check out is on Rick Beato's YouTube page. I've mentioned Beato before. I know he's pretty popular on YouTube, but he's like a music guy who also played in the band, who now has a YouTube page where he talks music and breaks down different songs, talks to a lot of different artists. His interview with Christopher Cross is great. But I think that show, that concert, I know Shacker's on it. I definitely want to go, but it should be a heck of a show. But Colin Hay's an interesting dude, and he's a cool guy. His wife is also part of the band as well, and she'll be on tour with them this summer when they're out there doing music with Christopher Cross and Toto. But it's a good documentary if you're into that kind of stuff with music. Colin Hay, Waiting for My Real Life. Okay, so we got the combine coming up in the NFL, and we've got the head coaching cycle, which is pretty much set now. The latest one was the New Orleans Saints, who have named their head coach. And I want you to hear this. Kellen Moore, former Boise State quarterback. He was the offensive coordinator. He's worked with Dallas. He was in Philly, won a Super Bowl this year. He's now the head man in New Orleans. Now, he said something interesting in regard to Derek Carr. He was asked about Derek Carr. And here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
Derek's a tremendous quarterback in this league. I've had so much respect for him, the journey that he's been on. He's a starter in this league. He's a premier player in this league. He's had a great journey, obviously going from Fresno State to the Raiders and now here. Really excited to team up with him and go through this process. And so just like any player on this roster, I just got here a few days ago, and I'm excited to go through this journey with all of them.
All right. So if he's asked about the quarterback, and he just says, hey, I'm excited to go through this journey with all of them, it's kind of an interesting take on it, right? Because he's not giving an answer. And I don't blame him. He shouldn't give an answer right now. The Saints have a lot of things to consider. They've got an expensive roster, an aging roster. They got salary cap issues. And they've got decisions that they need to make. Plus, you got a brand new head coach who's trying to come in and get a feel for the guys that he's got. And they're trying to determine what direction they want to take. Now, I heard Tom Pelissero, who covers the NFL, he was on with Rich Eisen, and Pelissero made a very interesting point. First off, Kellen Moore's not going to give an answer at quarterback yet because he doesn't have to. See, the thing is that he wants to sit down with Derek and hear from him, but he's also got to talk with his front office because it's not just as simple as bringing Derek Carr back. He's on a more expensive deal because he's a veteran quarterback. And if he comes back for another year, there are kickers and, sweeteners in his contract. So there are certain restraints that come with bringing him back as well. Meaning if they bring him back, it would have to be on a restructured deal. So there's a lot of business that goes into bringing Derek Carr back if they decide to do that. But Pelissero made another interesting point. Keep in mind that the Saints they have, they just hired a head coach, meaning they went through the interview cycle and talked to a bunch of different prospects for the head coaching job. And remember how I was telling you that, whether you go through, no matter what the sport is, the reason why you conduct several interviews for the position, even if you know who you're going to hire, and this could be for general manager or for head coach, even if you know who you're going to hire, it's best to interview as many people as possible, I believe, and from what I've always been told, because when you sit down with these guys, you're not just talking to them in a basic interview to get to know them. What they're doing is the prospective coach is they're laying out an entire plan for your team based on what they see with the roster, the type of scheme that they think the roster is best suited for, how they want to utilize certain players, what they want to do with your quarterback. So you're getting all this information from very bright minds on what they think about your team, your personnel, and how they would be best utilized. Well, what Pelissero said is that through the interview process, there were a number of coaches who have noticed by looking at the film, because obviously if you're going to go into an interview with a franchise, you're going to take a look at the film and break down the tape before you go into that interview so you know exactly what you're dealing with on the roster. And what Pelissero was told is that there are a lot of people who broke the tape on the Saints who were, considering that job or were in consideration for the job, who liked what they saw from Spencer Rattler. Meaning they looked at the tape, they saw some stuff material-wise that they could work with and maybe have success. And the reason why that's interesting to me is because maybe Kellen Moore, you come in, that Derek Carr gives you a better chance to win immediately, but it might be better off to let him go and you move forward with Spencer Rattler and to see exactly what he's got. He's a much cheaper option, and it allows you to continue to work with the roster to get the salary cap back in order as you eventually make your long-term plans at quarterback. And I like Derek Carr personally because I know he's a good dude and he's cool. And he was nice to my boy Steve down in Vegas. But he's not going to be your long-term answer at quarterback. And maybe the Saints, because their roster's so expensive anyways, maybe you bring Carr back and just try to win in a division that's not exactly overpowering. That's a possibility too. But I think that's interesting that, by going through the interview process and talking to all these different coaches because they broke the tape on them, that they all noticed some potential with Spencer Rattler, who was not one of the more heralded quarterbacks coming out of the draft last year. Because he started out at Oklahoma, he got benched. Caleb Williams went in, then he went to South Carolina. So his draft stock kind of took a hit because his college career didn't turn out to be quite what everyone thought it was going to be. But coaches noticed something, and we'll see what the Saints do there. But, yeah, if you're Kellen Moore, you don't have to give an answer to anything right now. Keep everything the same. We're going to talk to the players. I got to go through the process. I got to get to know them. We're evaluating. And then when you get to the point where you have to make a decision, you've got the information and a plan for how you're going to handle it, what you're going to do, and you can proceed from there. But I like Kellen Moore. I'm anxious to see what he can do as a head coach, and I want to see him do well. But, being a head coach is tough. Do you have the discipline to get it done? Do you have the smarts? Do you have the leadership? Will guys follow you? Can you connect with the guys? Can you be a hard ass when you have to be? There's so many things that go into it. All right, we'll keep things rolling. PGA Dave at 420, and then Brad Bakken talking hoop at 520 on the Rip City Drive. All right, 4 o'clock chat here. What's up, my friends? Hope you're enjoying your Friday. The NBA All-Star Game will be Sunday. It's down in San Francisco. And with that, the Trailblazers get a week off. They'll kick off the second half of their season Thursday at Moda Center against the Lakers. That tip-off scheduled for 7 o'clock. Elsewhere, according to reports, Shaq has agreed to a new deal. He'll remain with Inside the NBA with Kenny, Charles, and Ernie Johnson. Charles Barkley's also going to remain at Turner and be with the show Inside the NBA. And it will be sourced to ESPN when that new TV deal kicks in for the NBA next season. From the NFL, Colorado star and Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter will enter the NFL Combine as a defensive back. He played both corner and wide receiver in college. College hoops, Oregon State falls at U of P last night. They'll host Pacific tomorrow at 3 on 1190 KEX. And the Ducks will host Rutgers on Sunday. More of the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing coming up next. We'll talk hoop with Brad Bach and CBS at 5:20. All right, Sean chimes in regard to Kellen Moore, now the head coach with the Saints. He says, I don't think he was very good in Dallas, and I think it's easy for an offensive coordinator to look good with the Eagles' offensive line and Saquon Barkley. So I'm skeptical, as usual, on how this is going to work for Kellen Moore in New Orleans. Yeah, I mean, we don't know, right? We'll find out. You never know with these coordinators, how they're going to turn out to be head coaches. Cliff Kingsbury is an absolute stud, offensive mind, great coordinator, great play caller, knows how to work with offensive skill players. He's terrific. Look what he did with Washington this year. But the problem is with him, when he took the job in Arizona, the story on, Kingsbury is pretty simple, that he's not a disciplinarian. And it was difficult for him to run a tight ship as a head coach. He just didn't have that personality inside of him to be able to be hardcore when he had to be hardcore. He was more of a player's guy. And like anything else, when you're a player's coach, it's difficult to, run a tight ship. And it didn't work for him. But he's back at being a coordinator, and he's terrific. It doesn't mean that he can't figure it out as a head guy. It's just his personality traits. He's too easy on the guys. And there are coaches that go extreme the other way, where you're too hard on the guys. You're too much of a disciplinarian. That's why I think a lot of these head coaches, the good ones, they'd be great at running Fortune 500 companies, because they're so organized, they're detailed with their plans, and they know what to do. That's why I think Pete Carroll was a great hire for the Raiders. That's a rudderless ship right now, a disaster of a franchise that has no direction. And Mark Davis has made a couple of poor hires as head coach, with the last two especially. He went with McDaniels, who had already failed as a head coach, and it was a disaster. It played out a lot like it did with his first chance in Denver. And then he went with Antonio Pierce because he gave in to the players' desires. And anytime the players are clamoring for a guy because he's a players' coach, talk about a red flag. It's like, okay, players' coach, they love him, and that's going to be a problem. And sure enough, it was. So you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. It's tough. But with Kellen Moore, time will tell. We'll see how things shake out with Moore. But, I want him to do well because I like him. But there are no guarantees. I mean, heck, Nick Sirianni's crazy, and he made it work. You just never know. But, Moore, it's been around the game for a long time. We saw him utilize some very good concepts. I understand that he had good talent and a great offensive line and Saquon Barkley, but that Eagles offense was functioning at a very high level. And, Shane Steichen had the same thing. He's doing a good job so far in Indianapolis. So we'll see. We'll see how things shake out. Speaking of Philadelphia, you always like this. You always wonder, what's it like to be a champion? Does it match up with what you thought it would be? Here's Hurts on the joy of being a Super Bowl winner.
This whole year has been more magnifying to me in terms of my desire to win, because I kind of learned, how I processed everything after the game and where my heart was. It's like the joy of winning it still had no comparison to the pain of losing it. And so those things are still going to continue to motivate me and drive me internally.
I like Jalen Hurts. What a success story. He is a perfect example of how to deal with adversity. You know, he got benched in the title game for Tua. He stayed on to be a backup, got an opportunity the following year in the SEC title game, went to Oklahoma, proved that he could throw the football, and he's overcoming the NFL. I like everything about him. I like his poise the most. So calm and cool under pressure, and now he's a champion. Now, Hurts, not your classic pocket quarterback guy. He's never going to be what you want as a pocket guy, but he is accurate with the football. He's a good leader, and he can damage defense with his legs. But he did what he had to do in the Super Bowl. They needed him to be able to move the chains at key moments in the game with his arm, and he did. He made big throws, big plays, and he limited the mistakes. He had the one pick, but outside of that, he was nearly flawless. I'm a big fan of Jalen Hurts, and he's a very easy guy to root for. Miranda has chimed in again. Dear Skunk Vomit, good afternoon, Mr. Doing. Let's see what she's got to say today. Using your logic, I can confidently speak for listeners and state that we are excited to get to know Chad Doing. Of course, that's sarcasm. There's nothing to really get to know. The best thing about me is that you can learn from all of my mistakes in life and try not to repeat them. And if you do that, I can guarantee that you're going to have a fairly smooth go about things. No, I'm an uninteresting guy. Very uninteresting. But that's okay. If I can entertain you with my craziness, my poor decisions, my occasional brain farts or whatever's going on, then I'm here for you, Miranda. Whatever I can do to bring pleasure in your life, I'm here for you. You name it, and I'm there. Oh, my goodness. Man, the Combine's coming up in a couple of weeks. That's an event I've always wanted to go to. Everyone I've talked to that's been at the Combine says that it's the place to go for networking in terms of NFL football because you got everyone from all the different teams there all at the same time in one spot. And Indianapolis has always been a great hosting site for any event. Super Bowls, they do the Combine every year, Final Fours, championship games, everything. It's a great spot to host events, and they do a good job there. I would love to be at the Combine because I want to watch Travis Hunter, work. And he's going to go in as a cornerback, and I think that that's fine. If I were Travis, I would be a corner in the NFL. The reason why is teams are always looking for a shutdown corner, someone that can put out there on the island, that can take over one part of the field, and you don't have to worry about it. And I think corner's nice because you're going to be in a position to where you can stay healthier for a longer period of time because you're not taking the punishment that you are at receiver. And Hunter, as good as he is, he's more of an undersized type wide receiver. So I'm glad that he's going to pursue that. And then what I would expect to have happen is at the Combine, he'll go in and work out as a corner, but there'll be scouts from different teams who will want to get a look at him running some routes. So he'll get a chance to run some routes. They'll get a look at what he can do. And if I'm drafting Travis Hunter, I may draft him with the idea that he's going to be a starting corner in the NFL, but I want to make sure that I utilize his talents in more than just on defense. Meaning, maybe as a return guy in special teams, I would utilize him in offense with different packages so you can get him on the field. Travis Hunter is one of those guys where you just want him to be on the field as much as possible so that he can have a positive impact on the game. And it reminds me of, one time I was having a conversation, I think this was when I was down in the Bay Area, with Stanford head coach at the time, David Shaw. And we asked him about Christian McCaffrey and what it was like coaching him. And he said that every week in game preparation, he and his coaching staff would get together for what they called the McCaffrey Project. And the whole objective with the McCaffrey Project every week was to sit down and go over the game plan and the opponent and then see different ways they could get McCaffrey involved in the game, the way they could utilize his talents because he was so dynamic, whether it be through special teams, the run game, the passing game. What are some different ways we can get McCaffrey involved? Trick plays. And I think that's the right way to approach it because when you got a player of that caliber, don't limit him to just one thing. Utilize him in a variety of different ways. And I think what's going to be helpful for Hunter, being a little bit more undersized, by focusing on one position, he won't be pulled in 12 different directions. It would be very difficult in the NFL with the preparation weeks leading up to games to go through all of the meetings necessary with the offense, all the meetings necessary with the defense to be able to go full time on both sides of the ball. What he did at college in Colorado is pretty remarkable. One, he stayed, fairly healthy for that type of workload. We just haven't seen a guy like Travis Hunter do what he did at two different spots and playing full time on both sides of the ball. Very unique. But now he'll be able to focus on one position, and then you won't overload him, but you can still use him in spots with different packages on offense where he can be a difference maker. Maybe it's special teams. There's different ways you can use him. Now, my one dream for the draft is, as you know, I'm in love with Cam Skattebo, who's coming out to the draft from Arizona State. He got a combine invite, and he's going to get a chance to showcase what he can do. And Kenny Dillingham did a great job at Arizona State over the last 2 years of utilizing Skattebo in a variety of different spots. In the passing game, in the running game, they used him on special teams. They used him with trick plays because he had the ability to throw the football. Skattebo did everything. And my dream is for the Denver Broncos to draft Skattebo. I would love Skattebo to be a Bronco. I would get a Skattebo jersey, and I would like to see the way Sean Payton could use a guy like that because he's so smart and he's just a competitor, and you can use him in so many different ways on the field. I think it would be fun. So I'm praying the Broncos draft him, but I'll watch Skattebo no matter where he goes. But I think that's going to be cool to watch with these teams and how they approach it and how they want to utilize some of these different players. Now, Shiloh Sanders did not get an invite to the combine, the other son for Deion, who was playing at Colorado. And from my understanding, with the invites, that teams have a lot of input on who gets invited to the combine. And I heard Mike Mayock say, I think he was talking to Eisen, that some teams won't clamor for a certain guy to get to the combine because they're trying to keep him on the down low because they have their eyes on him. And they don't want to draw attention to certain players who they might be able to get as undrafted free agents to let other teams know they have interest in a certain guy, so they'll remain hush-hush and then start the back channel communications after the draft so they can bring a guy in as an undrafted free agent. But no Shiloh Sanders. He did not get a combine invite. But for Travis Hunter, he's going to make a dynamic impact. He'll go top 5 in the draft, a unique prospect. He might be the best prospect in the draft, along with the edge rusher from Penn State. And I think Shedeur Sanders likely will go number 1 because of quarterback need. And then Cam Ward second. I think those will be your top 2 quarterbacks. I think Shiloh will be the number 1 overall pick. The edge rusher from Penn State's very interesting. Travis Hunter is going to be big time. And it's a very deep, deep, deep running back class. And maybe after what Saquon did this year and Derrick Henry did this year, that teams will now look at the running back position a little bit more, a little differently. Instead of devaluing it, looking to bring in a bell cow that can come in and be a big difference maker like Henry or with Saquon. And Ashton Genty's hanging out there. I've seen a lot of mocks having the Cowboys take Genty in the first round. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We'll talk some golf next. PJ Dave going to join me, and we'll do a little preview of the upcoming season. He's a big Bills fan, too, lifetime Bills fan. We'll get his take on the Bills. Josh Allen getting the MVP and what's it going to take to get over on the Chiefs. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. All right, joining me right now is a good friend and a great friend of the show. It's PJ Dave, David Coleman. PJ Dave, long time no chat. How are things shaking, my friend?
I'm doing good, Chad. Great to be back on with you, man. How you been?
I'm very well. Just like usual, in withdrawals now that football season's over. But I wanted to ask you, as a lifelong Bills fan and a guy who has followed the franchise for years, I mean, how devastating was that loss this year in the AFC title game?
It's getting tougher and tougher every year, man. Josh is a Hall of Fame quarterback, arguably the best player in football. This year he was. He's right up there with, any of the great players in the league. And, when you've got a guy like that, you've got to find a way to get it done. And I feel like McDermott as a head coach and his defensive schemes just haven't been able to get it done against Kansas City. And it's really frustrating to see. And because I feel like our offense is really good and Josh is an all-time great player, and I'll even say that he's still in his 20s. So it's getting tough, man, every year because it's the window's still open, but at the same time, every year that goes by, it's more and more frustrating.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. What's it going to take for the Bills to get over on Kansas City? Because that's really the challenge, right? It's Josh now 0-4 against Patrick Mahomes. That's like the immovable force that they've got to find a way to get through.
Oh, no doubt about it, man. I think the biggest thing the Bills have to do is they got to do what Philly did in the Super Bowl. They got to get a defensive line that really can, get after Mahomes and, push that offensive line around. And then I think on the offensive side of the ball, I think, to me, they got to keep developing the running game. I think Josh, in the passing game is really, came along nicely this year, but I think they need another downfield threat. But I think in the trenches, Chad, is where it all comes down to. If they can really get two guys up front, a nose tackle and a defensive end who can really, push the pocket back, make Mahomes uncomfortable, then you got a great chance to beat them like we saw Philly do in the Super Bowl.
All right, PJ Dave, David Coleman is with us. All right, so we're getting ready for a brand new golf season. Very unfortunate news about Tiger Woods and his mother, and because of that, he wasn't going to be involved with the Genesis Invitational, but hopefully he'll be able to be active on some level this year. What are your expectations for Tiger?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, condolences to, him and his family, what happened to his mother. She was obviously a huge influence, in his life. As far as this year with Tiger, it's his last year before he's eligible for the Champions Tour. So I think he's going to try to play as much as he can. I hope he plays at least once before Augusta, just to get some competitive reps in. I think when we've seen him play, I don't think it's his swing that looks bad. I think it's just obviously the, walking and physically trying to, get through 4 rounds. And that seems like where it's really tough for him. But I think to me, this could be a year where he might try to push himself a little bit to play as much as he can. And hopefully next year when he turns 50, we see him a little bit more on the senior side of things, because if he can play in a cart, Chad, I think he could still be a really effective player and go out there and win and be really competitive against those guys on that circuit over there.
All right, PGA David Coleman is with us. So what are you going to be paying attention to this year? Obviously, Bryson had a good year last year. There are a number of golfers that are on the rise, but who are a couple of guys you're going to be watching this year as we, get into the thick of things?
I think there's 3 guys you got to really look at. I think obviously can Scheffler come back and duplicate what he did last year? It'd be hard to say that he will, but what we've seen out of Scheffler is he's an ordinary guy who does extraordinary things on the golf course. And I think with this new putting grip that he's got, I think he's definitely trying to become more consistent on the greens, which is a scary thought for the rest of the world of golf and the PGA Tour. So I think Scotty Scheffler, obviously number 1, you want to see where he's at. And then Rory, for sure, it was great to see him win a couple weeks ago at Pebble Beach, a really dominating win at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am there. And I think Rory, with his golf swing, is always going to be a factor. The biggest thing that we've talked about over the years, and we saw it last year at the U.S. Open, is the putter. If he's solid with the putter. He doesn't have to be great, but if he's solid with the putter, Rory and his golf swing travels just about anywhere. Rory, no doubt, is going to be a factor this year. I think he breaks through this year, wins another major, I think. And the other guy that I want to see come back and win this year, hasn't won since the 2022 PGA, is Justin Thomas. I'd love to see JT get back in the winner's circle. I think he's a guy that's a fan favorite. He hits it a long way, and I think he's a guy that so many people expected so much out of. And I think, the last couple of years, it seems like his game has been kind of Jekyll and Hyde, but I think he was a lot closer last year than people thought. And I really think he'll get back in the winner's circle this year. And I think, if JT is playing good, I think that's good for the game of golf.
I wanted to ask you about McIlroy's putting. Of the golfers that you have seen in the past who had the same issues with the putter like Rory, what are some things they can do to take it to the next level, to make improvements, to really get over the hump with some of the issues he's got with the putter?
I think a couple things, Chad. I think, number one, you try to putt with a putter that's more forgiving. I think that's the one thing we've seen that a lot of these companies have done. They've made the putters more forgiving, which, a lot of people don't really think about because you hear about more forgiving drivers, more forgiving irons. But putting, if you're not hitting the sweet spot or near the sweet spot with a putter and you're mishitting it, it's going to go offline. So there's no doubt that you want to have a putter that's easier to putt with. And then I think, honestly, to me, just staying in the moment. I think Rory, when you miss putts like that, like he did at the end of the U.S. Open last year at Pinehurst, I think that comes down to, the pressure of the moment, probably his grip pressure. He never has publicly said what it was like, but I guarantee you his grip pressure was probably a little bit too tight in those situations. And then I think when you're in a big-time situation like that, just focusing on one shot at a time, not being concerned with, what could happen down the road.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. The one thing about Scheffler, when I watch him play, just through the eye, Dave, like the swing is so smooth right now. Like he just appears to be dialed in. Like he could be hitting that level where he's going to go on a 2 or 3 year run because he looks so, like a well-oiled machine.
Oh, he certainly does, Chad. And it's incredible to think. I mean, he had a little bit of surgery there, at the end of the year there after what happened that I think some glass broke and got inside of his hand. And it doesn't even look like it's affected him at all. So I think that's a credit to him and a credit to his team around him, whether it be, his coach, his caddy, his wife, anyone else that's around him. He keeps things very level-headed, and, he has a very good perspective on things. I mean, even when he played lousy last year for him, it seemed like he bounced back the next week or the next round, and he was basically a factor in every tournament he played in, I think, outside of the U.S. Open. So there's no doubt that, Scottie Scheffler right now is in the prime of his career. And I think, too, he's so mentally strong. I mean, we learned that at the PGA Championship last year after that crazy situation. He came out and played a fantastic round on that Friday after that, hideous arrest. So, there's no doubt that Scottie Scheffler is a guy that I think right now in the real prime era of his career, and I think it's good for golf that he's playing well because he's a great role model for kids to look up to, and his game is so sound and solid. He never really gets himself in trouble, off the tee, and then around the greens when he does miss a green, it just seems like he's able to get the ball up and down, pretty much with an efficient ability almost every time.
What's the next step for Bryson?
Well, I think number one, obviously we got to find out about this whole merger, what happens with that with LIV and the PGA Tour. But I think right now for this season, I think keep playing at a high level on LIV, and then I think trying to win another major. I think Bryson, can he figure out Augusta? You would think Augusta would be a really good course for him because of his length off the tee. His wedge play has improved a lot. So I think obviously we're fascinated to see how he does at Augusta. And then I think the big thing is overall, we want to get these guys back together on both these tours so we can see the best players play more than just 4 times a year in the majors. So it feels like we're going to see the cream of the crop playing at all these different venues around the world.
Yeah, it's very important to be able to see the best of the best be able to compete against one another. I don't question that at all. The other player you got me watching last year was Xander Schauffele. I like how he just remains so calm and cool under pressure.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, Xander had a fantastic season last year, winning 2 major championships. A guy that a lot of people doubted for many years that he would never win one. And I loved how he kicked everything down and ended up winning 2 majors on 2 totally different golf courses last year. I'm just wondering right now with that injury, it's kind of an undisclosed injury. I know I've heard some people talk about it on some different radio shows and different places in the golf world, and nobody really knows how significant this injury is. We haven't seen Xander this year, so I'm hoping that, by the time the tour gets to Florida, Xander's going to be playing and ready for Augusta, because I think, the big thing about Xander is he's a guy that, I think is a key component to not only these major championships, but I think these Ryder Cup and President's Cup teams going forward, because I think a lot of guys in the locker room are looking for that guy to really lead those teams. And I think Xander is kind of that quiet assassin who can really lead those teams in the future, especially considering, the Europeans have such a strong record in the Ryder Cup. And I think, Keegan Bradley is going to be looking for him to really step up and be one of those faces of that team this fall at Bethpage Black.
Are there any young guys that you're going to watch that are coming onto the scene this year that have caught your eye, Dave?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. Just watching this week, three guys I would say that, are playing good this week at Torrey Pines and have had success last year. You obviously look at Nick Dunlap, the guy who turned pro last year, and, it was really, a lot of people didn't expect him to, have the success he had, but he won twice last year on the tour, once as an amateur, then he turns pro, wins the Stableford tournament out there in Reno Tahoe. And then, you look at Ludwig Aberg, a guy that had a great run in the Masters. He's won once on the PGA Tour, won over in Europe as well. A guy that was, in his rookie season, a few months into his pro career, made the Ryder Cup team for Europe. So he's a guy that there's no doubt Ludwig is going to be a factor for a long time, as long as that knee can stay healthy. I know he had a little minor surgery last year, but I think Ludwig is a guy that is just, his swing is so sound and solid that I think he's going to always be a factor. And the other guy that is a little bit unheralded, but he won last year at the John Deere Classic, is Davis Thompson, a guy that, is playing well this week in San Diego, a guy that, grew up around the game of golf. His dad played college golf at University of Georgia. He lives down in that Sea Island area where a lot of different players from the tour have lived. Davis Love, Zach Johnson, Lucas Glover, guys like that have lived down there. Brian Harmon, the past Open champion, lives there. So, he's been around these different guys, and I think he's a guy that obviously winning at the John Deere, you're not afraid to make birdies, but I think he's a guy that, again, here's a younger guy that has a calm demeanor. I think that's going to really travel well for Ryder Cups and President's Cups. And then I think for major championships, too, because there's so much expectations on all these guys when they go to the majors and stuff with all the media coverage, social media nowadays. And I think Davis Thompson has that perfect head on his shoulders that is a great, quiet mind that can really propel him to, a lot of success down the road here on the PGA Tour.
All right, PGA David Coleman with us here on the Rip City Drive. Well, Dave, always a pleasure to talk with you. Here in Portland, we just got a little bit of snow, but golf season's about 2 months away because the NBA season will be winding down and the good weather's going to be coming. I can't wait to get back out on the course and just continue to play, man. I love the game, and I love talking it with you.
Oh, no doubt about it, man. Yeah, I love coming on with you and talking golf with you. And, you've been playing some good golf the last few years, and that should inspire a lot of the listeners, too, that, you don't have to play, every single day to get better. But, Chad's a great example of a guy who enjoys the game and has a real passion for it. And, he covers it, obviously, by talking about it. So that's so cool that, someone like him, has really taken a liking to this sport that, you can play for your whole life. So it's great. And, I think it's going to be a fun season this year. Obviously, the PGA being at Quail Hollow is going to be great. U.S. Open's at Oakmont, and then going back to where they had the Open Championship in Ireland, where Shane Lowry won in the Portrush in 2019. So that's going to be a great venue. And then, obviously, the Masters in April is always a fantastic event. So we're just psyched for the season. Then, like I brought up the Ryder Cup, but being at Bethpage Black in Long Island there near New York City, that's going to be an insane event there. The crowds and the fans are going to really be raucous, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, looking forward to this year, man. And like I said, appreciate you having me on.
All right, you're the best, buddy. We'll catch up soon, and enjoy your weekend.
You do the same, Chad.
All right, there he is, PGA David Coleman. I can't wait for golf season. The weather, this will pass. About 2 months away from, my golf season officially beginning once the Blazers season's over. And he's right. I think I've been working with Nick now at Golf Tech for, I think it's 5 years. This is year 5. It's year 4 or 5. But it's been such a great experience. I've invested a couple of dollars. he got me fitted with my new clubs a few years ago, and he's been my coach now for a few years. But every year we get together, and he details, the plan in terms of how we're going to work, how we're going to use the practice time together, and then we focus on new things and set new goals. And each year I've been able to accomplish the goals that he's laid out. And all I do is I practice year round, and I utilize the indoor facilities at Golf Tech, and I practice a few days a week indoors. And then once the golf season hits, I play constantly. And through the repetition, playing and practicing, and Nick obviously giving me instruction, it makes all the difference in the world. I love it. Absolutely love it. And then I got some good dudes. Rev here in town. I got my two old dudes that I play golf with all the time. It's good times. But I love talking golf with Dave. Can't wait for the Masters. And we'll see how the season shakes out. How Xander's going to do. How Scheffler's going to do. What about Bryson? And we'll get a chance to watch and talk a lot of golf. Oh, by the way, I did drive into work today. I know we got some more snow last night, but the roads, if you haven't gone anywhere and you were thinking about going somewhere, freeways were totally clear. And the only snow I had was just getting out of the neighborhood. I live up on kind of a hill in North Vancouver. So the roads in the neighborhood were covered, but once it got into the main roads, nothing. And the freeways were totally clear. And I didn't have any issues getting home last night. I left Tigard, went into downtown, no traffic issues. I had to swing by Motor Center to pick up a piece of equipment, and then I cruised home. So no problems yesterday and no problems last night or this morning. So if you got to go somewhere, don't fear it. The roads are pretty clear. The good thing is I think a lot of people stayed home today. My daughter didn't have school today, so she didn't have to go in. But the roads, like the traffic driving in today was awesome. I think it took like 30 minutes to get out here to work. It's so irritating here in Portland when there's no traffic and you can drive from like North Vancouver to one end of town here in Portland, and it doesn't take that long. But when it's like there's high traffic and it takes like 45 minutes, 50 minutes to get somewhere, you realize how messy the traffic is. It's very annoying. But yeah, I like Dave. Dave's a good dude. And Dave's cool too. Like he'll reach out. He texts me occasionally just to check in and see how things are going with my golf game and provide encouragement because he's, done some instruction and teaching, and he plays a lot. He's a good golfer, but I like hearing from him. And I can text him and ask him different questions about how he maybe does this or what about this type of swing or what he's working on. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We'll talk NBA with Brad Buck, and I can't believe that he came on. Last time he was on the show was the day before the Mavericks traded Luka. I can't wait to get his take on it. I haven't asked him about his specific take on the Luka deal, so I can't wait to touch base on that. You can reach out to me, 503-248-0620. You can find me on social at Chad and Rip City. You got the Rip City Drive. It was funny. I just sent my dad a picture of the snow, and my mom and dad are over in Maui right now. And he responded with a picture of he and my Uncle Gordon on the beach hanging out. So I'm jealous right now. He's enjoying paradise, and we're dealing with some wintry conditions here in the Portland area. But as I mentioned before, the roads are fine. So if you got to go somewhere, I'm sure maybe some of you might be out on a Valentine's Day date or something of that nature. So good luck with that. My daughter, I think, is going to a Valentine's Day party tonight. I think her friend's having a Valentine's Day party or something of that nature. So she's going to be doing that. And this is one of those rare weekends. It hasn't been like this in a long time, but I don't have a lot going on. You know, with the NBA All-Star break, and we don't have games every other day to cover, it's kind of nice to have some little rest and recovery time. The NBA season is just so busy for everyone involved. You cover the team, you work the games, especially January, which is jam-packed. I think there were 15 games in January and multiple weeks where the games spill into the weekend, so I end up working 14, 15, 16 straight days. So it's nice to have some downtime to be able to relax and recoup and get ready for the stretch run. And the next game will be on Thursday. The Lakers will be in town, Luka and LeBron, and the Blazers will kick off the stretch run. And from everyone I've talked to, I've been trying to, gauge how they're going to approach the second half. I think the young guys, the key guys, Scoot, Shaden, Klingon, Tamani, and Denny will continue to play and play big minutes. I think the two guys to watch will be Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant. How much time do they play down the stretch? Will they be shut down, or will they continue to play but maybe have a reduced role? I guess if I had my preference, like if I had to choose, I wouldn't mind seeing Grant and Simons, shut down or have their minutes limited so that we can get a chance to see Scoot and Shaden play extensive minutes together. And because all I care about now is just continued development and to see those guys continue to take their game to the next level. So player development to me is critical. So I want to see the young guys play, but those five in particular. And I would love to see a stretch where we have Scoot, Shaden backcourt, Klingon at center, Tamani at forward along with Avdia. And I'd like to see those five guys play and get a chance for individual improvement, but also develop some more on-court chemistry. And then, really try to get on the same page defensively, put those guys in some situations where they have to execute defensively so they can continue some of the improvements that we've seen on that end. We have seen significant improvement in, many areas this year. Obviously, individually, all five of those guys have improved. But more importantly, for the team concepts, we've seen some flashes of a better offense with the ball movement, the assist numbers. But on defense, just improvements in all areas. Communication, rotations, contesting the three-point line. We've seen them execute better in the half court. So there's been improvement in a lot of different areas. But I think for me, a reduction in Grant and Simon's minutes wouldn't be too bad. And then just get a chance to see these young guys continue to play and play more. Because what are you going to have, 28 games remaining, something of that? I think it's 26 or 28. So plenty of games left for these guys to go out there and get some burn and get a chance to play together and continue that process of development and improvement as a unit, as a crew. And that's kind of what I'm looking for there. As for the rest of the NBA season, excited to see how things shake out in the Western Conference. I think Oklahoma City is the best team. I guess if I had to pick the three best teams right now, it'd probably be OKC, Denver, and then I'm not sure who you put in that next group or that next grouping. Lakers, maybe. Oklahoma City, Denver. I don't know. You can pick a variety of teams at the number 3 hole. It could be Memphis, Houston, or the Lakers. But Oklahoma City definitely the top. In the Eastern Conference, Cleveland's atop the East right now. They might get the number 1 seed. But I think Cleveland and Boston are clearly head and shoulders above the rest. I love the way the Knicks have played this year. I like the Knicks because, they're a veteran team. They definitely play together. Thibodeau's got those guys playing really well. Karl Anthony Towns has been a nice addition. He's been great this year for the Knicks. I just don't think they have enough firepower to be able to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series. I just don't think anyone's going to beat Boston, Cleveland, New York, Indiana, whoever. I just think Boston's head and shoulders above the rest. And if I had to guess with the Celtics, I think what they're doing this year, because they just won the championship, They're sitting there in second, like 5.5 games out. I don't think they're concerned about the number 1 seed. I think what they're trying to do is just, fine tune. I think they'll start to ramp it up here in the second half of the season. I think their goal would be just to be at their best, playing their best basketball going into the playoffs. And then with their talent and, completeness of the roster and the experience they have, once they get in the postseason, I think they'll crank it up on both ends, and I think they'll be virtually unstoppable. I mean, when they played the Knicks this year, they've handled them really well. I don't think Cleveland's got enough to be able to beat Boston in a 7-game series. I expect to see the Celtics back in the finals. And then with Oklahoma City, I don't really have any questions about their roster, their defense. They've got good length. They've got a superstar in SGA. Really, what's the only thing the only knock on them would be lack of playoff experience. They went down last year, but maybe that run's going to help them this year. But I think Oklahoma City love the way they play. And I really enjoy watching Shai Gilgeous-Alexander play. Just his control, his body control, his finishing ability. He knows how to get to the foul line. He's been a lot of fun to watch, and their size. They've got some very interesting pieces. So we'll see how it continues to shake out. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620. You can hit me up on social at Chad and Rip City. And then coming up at 520, Brad Bach and CBS Sports is going to join us. We'll get his take on Luka. And I want to know what he thinks about their lineup come postseason time. How will they do with Luka and LeBron on the floor together? And how hard will they be to stop? And if there's a team to knock off OKC in the West, who is it? Is it Denver? Is it going to be the Lakers? Is it somebody else? And can Houston and Memphis be, kind of dark horses? So we'll talk with Brad Bakken at 520. Happy Valentine's Day, my friends. I love you. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. All right, 5 o'clock, Chad here. What's up, my friends? From the NFL, Colorado star and Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter is going to enter the combine as a defensive back. He played both corner and wide receiver in college. From the NBA, the All-Star game is set for Sunday from San Francisco. The Trailblazers have a week off. Their next game to kick off the second half of the season will be Thursday at Moda Center against the Lakers with a tip-off scheduled for 7. Good news. Inside the NBA is back. Shaq has agreed to a new deal. Charles is back with TNT. He has ended conversations with NBC and Amazon, and the show will be sourced to ESPN when the new TV deal kicks in next year. College hoop, Oregon State falls last night at U of P. They'll host Pacific tomorrow. You can catch it live on your home of the Beavs, 1190 KX. Tip-off at 3. The Ducks to host Rutgers on Sunday. We'll talk hoop with Brad Bakken of CBS Sports coming up at 5:20 on the Rip City Drive. All right, Brad Bakken, CBS Sports, going to talk hoop with me coming up at 5:20. You can reach out to me if you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. Boy, the traffic was pretty light when I came in today. There wasn't a lot of action out there, and it was kind of nice little cruise and no snow or anything on the freeways. There was a little bit on the side streets, but nothing major, so it was pretty nice. And I'm just getting ready for a little chill weekend. Got a golf lesson tomorrow. I'm going to meet up with a buddy to have a little cup of coffee. And then on Sunday, I'm going down to Spirit Mountain to host one of their side bet drawings. But outside of that, not much. It's going to be kind of a chill weekend, which is cool. And my daughter's going to be at a Valentine's Day party tonight. All I do is I'm just like, look, just let me know if you need a ride home, if you're not going to stay the night. Just let me know and give me a heads up. I'm trying to work with my daughter to where she just is a little bit better about the communication. Can any of you dads raise your hand? Can you relate to what I'm going through there? It's like, honey, I'll do anything for you. You need a ride somewhere? That's fine. Just keep me apprised of what's happening. So I've been working with her on the communication part of things, but I think she's excited about that. And that's about it, man. Just me and Puppy Shots chilling. The NBA All-Star Game, Chris Haynes put out that report. It's funny that they had to actually put out a report about these type of things, but Haynes put out a report saying that the league and the players are going to get together before the All-Star Game to encourage competition. According to Haynes' sources, the league and the players' union to meet together with players on Sunday prior to the All-Star Game to highly stress the importance of competing for the fans and for the business. It is kind of funny that they actually have to have a meeting to encourage competition amongst the players for the All-Star Game. But the funny thing is, I can guarantee you that if they actually went out and competed and you had both sides trying to win the game and they played a little bit of defense, especially later in the game, people would watch. I would watch. I want to see the best of the best going up against each other trying to win. But the game has devolved into kind of a circus over the last 20 years. Very little competition, no defense, and just guys dunking and jacking up threes. Like, I don't need that in my life. But I do want to see that those guys care about competing and trying to win a game. And if you guys contesting and taking it at one another, like, that's compelling basketball to me. So it's funny. It's ridiculous that they have to have a conversation with a group of guys to express the importance of competition before the All-Star Game when they're making many millions of dollars to do what they do. And yet, if they did that, more people would tune in and watch. At least I would. The All-Star Game back in the day was awesome. They would have a little bit of time for guys to showboat a tad, but by the fourth quarter, both sides were locked in, and they were trying to win and send a message. It was about pride and competition. And guys, the best of the game getting together, kind of show one another what they can do. And I like that. But I don't want a three-point shooting contest mixed in with a layup drill and a bunch of dunks with no defense, no resistance. So I don't know if the guys would be willing to commit to that, but if they do and they start, playing, if you just respect the game and play it hard, the game will be fine. That's all. You don't have to do anything special with the teams. If they just went back to East versus West and you had guys out there competing and playing hard and defending in the fourth quarter, people would watch the game. It's pretty simple because there's big stars in the NBA. Giannis, Luka. Dallas didn't want him, but Luka's a star. SGA, you got some big-time names mixed in with some of the long-term guys like KD and LeBron. Now, the other big question is, where's KD going to end up next year? Because he's not going to be back in Phoenix. He's probably going to be gone. Would it be Miami? Is he going to go back to Golden State? Where's Kevin Durant going to end up? And the guy's still got a lot of basketball left in him. But that's all, man. Just compete. Commit to it. It's just funny that they have to have a meeting to discuss. But I'm telling you, more people would watch. If they got back to just pure competition and challenging one another and trying to win the game would be much more compelling and people would watch. The other good piece of news that came out is that inside the NBA is intact. Ernie Johnson, Charles, Kenny, Shaq. Shaq got a new deal done. I think it's worth a reported like $15 million a year. That's a nice chunk of change. Charles is making like 21. But Shaq has re-signed. Charles announced that he's going to end conversations with NBC and Amazon. Those are two of the new partners for the NBA. The new TV deal kicks in next year. And TNT's on the outside looking in. But, of course, everyone loves the show inside the NBA. So they're going to keep it together. And then I think they're sourcing it to ESPN. At least that's what I read. So we're going to be able to continue to watch the show. And I think what makes the show compelling is that Charles Barkley and those guys, they just say what's on their mind. Whether you agree or disagree, they give honest assessment, and that makes for compelling television. And they're pretty funny together. And I like it when they crack on one another, especially Shaq and Charles, making fun of each other, Kenny saying a bunch of stuff that makes no sense, and then Ernie Johnson just steering the ship and trying to keep those guys on track. But the reason why Charles makes as much as he does is because people will tune in to listen to him, because they know that he's going to give them an honest opinion. He's just going to say what's on his mind. It's amazing how just being open and transparent with what's on your mind can be so compelling. And it's funny because everyone says they want honesty, but a lot of people don't because they get offended when they hear it. But I like Charles. They crack on guys sometimes. They make fun of the games that they have that suck. I think that's funny. Instead of trying to pretend that some of the games that they have are good, they're not. And they joke about it. I find that entertaining. So that show's going to be together. And then I think it's Mike Tirico and Reggie Miller are going to be the pairing on NBC. I'm fine with that. Mike Tirico does a good job. I prefer him on football. I think Reggie Miller is a very good analyst. I like Reggie. I always have. Everyone argues about analysts or whatever, but I'm down with Reggie. I don't mind him. The only basketball analyst that I can't stand right now is Stan Van Gundy. The guy that looks like Ron Jeremy. He has diarrhea of the mouth constantly. His voice grates on my ears. I don't like his analysis. He drives me crazy. That's about it. Outside of that, I can deal with just about anything else. Kevin Harlan is top-notch in terms of play-by-play right now. I wish Kevin Calabro would do more network stuff because I'd like to watch more of him. I think he's great on the national level. I listened to him on ESPN Radio for years. Big fan of his. So love Kevin Calabro, but right now Kevin Harlan's about as good as it gets, for the TV stuff. The other guy I'm keeping an eye on is Noah Eagle, Ian's son. He's terrific, and I love Ian Eagle, too. Eagle's great on anything he does, football, basketball, whatever. He's one of those, multi-dimensional stars. But I grew up with, the first network guy that I grew up with was Dick Stockton when he was working with Tommy Heinsohn, the longtime Celtic. And then after that, it was Billy Cunningham. And then after that, it was Hubie Brown. And so I've watched Hubie for most of my life, too. And Hubie just retired. 91 years old? But my favorite TV crew of all time for the NBA was Marv Albert and Mike Fratello. Marv Albert is kind of the gold standard for the NBA. I thought he was sensational. Love Marv. Marv was great. And then he got in trouble with some about a lady and crotchless panties or whatever the deal was. And then he got kind of phased out of NBC, and then Bob Costas took over. I like Bob. I don't like Bob as a NBA guy, more on baseball, but, Bob was okay at doing the the national stuff for the NBA, but he's not as good as Marv. Marv was a one of a kind. I was a big fan of Marv Albert. Enjoyed him, and then of course all the stuff we've watched on TNT over the years. But Kevin Harlan is fabulous. But I would tune in to watch Ian Eagle as well. I'll watch net games sometimes just so I can hear Ian call a game because I think he's great. But that's kind of where we're at. The Trailblazers, for being a small market NBA team, their broadcast crew is pretty darn good. Lamar Hurd does a fabulous job. I mean, he's kind of one of those guys because he doesn't have the big name. He flies under the radar. But I've talked to Calabro about this. And one of the reasons why Calabro, and keep in mind, he's had, he gets job offers elsewhere because he's big time. But he doesn't, I think he's always wanted to remain in Portland with what he's doing with the Blazers because he loves the team he's working with. The crew behind the scenes, he respects Lamar Hurd a lot, and they have a good chemistry and work well together. And I know he likes working with Brooke. And I think, as you get older into a business or whatever, you start to realize the importance of the team around you or the people around you. And so Calabro recognizes that and wants to be a part of that. I think Fratello might be doing Clippers broadcasts right now. Man, he and Marv were so good together. I don't know. If you're like me, I like to go back on YouTube and watch some of the old games, and so it's cool to hear those broadcasters. And then Dick Stockton was another one of those guys who was multi-dimensional because he could do football and basketball. I mean, those are the two primary sports because he did the NFL for years. So, it's good. It's really good. But, yeah, Tirico and Reggie Miller will be fine. Well, why do people hate Reggie so much? I like Reg. He was annoying as a basketball player. Couldn't stand him. But that's only because he played for the Pacers and, he carried a certain role or had a certain role on that team. He's obviously a great player. But I love hearing him talk about Larry Bird when Bird was the coach there at Indiana, the respect that he has for Larry Joe. I love those kind of stories. So we'll see how things shake out. But that's where we're at. Inside the NBA, that's all you need to know. It's going to continue. The show's not going anywhere, and so we'll continue to get the analysis from those guys. I watched them last night, and they have a lot of fun. Ernie Johnson's a good dude. The TNT, the Turner Sports, they've cranked out a bunch of great broadcasters over the years. I grew up with Skip Carey and Pete Van Wieren on the broadcast. Rick Barry was a great, color guy. Steve Kerr was good when he did it. Doc Rivers. I actually like Doc the analyst. Doc the coach annoys me because he's always yelling at everyone. But Doc the analyst, I thought he did a good job on the broadcast. He did national stuff or network stuff on ABC when they had the finals. I think he was working with Al Michaels. Yeah, so Doc Rivers, Steve Kerr. There's been a lot of guys, ex-coaches and so forth, who have done a good job behind the mic. But I do miss some of the old timers. Vern Lundquist was great. I don't know. I grew up with a lot of great broadcasters, but I think that's going to be the key NBC crew. But Noah Eagle does a good job too. Young, and he sounds a lot like his dad, but he's a good broadcaster. All right, let's break it down. We'll get into Luka with Brad Botkin. I'll ask him what he thinks about the league getting together with the union and the players to express the importance of competition before the game on Sunday, the All-Star game. Brad Botkin, CBS Sports, is coming up next. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing. All right, last time I had him on the show, it was the day before all hell broke loose in the NBA when Luka was traded. And now he joins us once again from CBS Sports, Brad Bakken, who is the father of the year as far as I'm concerned. What's up, Brad?
What's up, man? Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, you too, man. Happy Valentine's Day. My daughter is going to a Valentine's Day party tonight, and so all I asked was, I said, honey, just give me a heads up on if you need a ride home. And if you're going to stay the night, that's fine, but just let me know. I'm trying to work with her on the last-second notifications on where I need to be and how I need to service her.
Dude, so I was thinking, Brad, before I got on with you, if there's a few things in everyday life where you realize, like, if you married the right woman.
Yes.
And today, my wife comes home, and she doesn't want a fancy dinner, roses, didn't even do a card. She comes home and she says, "Can I please have grilled cheese and top ramen?" So it's like, yo, all these other guys looking for reservations, breaking the bank. No. She looks at me with like a huge smile. "Can I have grilled cheese and top ramen?"
Jeez.
Lottery.
Brad, you hit the jackpot, my friend. How many guys would pray for that moment in their life to happen, and it just went down for you on Valentine's Day?
I'm telling you. I think about it all the time. I go play tennis all the time, and all my friends are always just like, "Oh, I can't go. I got to do this. I got to do." I was like, my wife don't care. As like every day, I'm like, "Oh man, I really got lucky." But Valentine's Day, the top ramen, that takes the cake.
It was pretty funny. I went over to visit my parents like last week, and it was in the evening time after I had gotten off of work, and I went in, and my mom was in the kitchen. I was like, "Mom, what are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, your dad wanted a grilled cheese," and he was in the bedroom just hanging out watching TV on bed, and so my mom went in to make him a grilled cheese. I was thinking, good for you, Dad. Nice work.
Dude, that's like a true marriage right there.
That's so cool, man. Well, dude, I couldn't believe it. You come on, and the next day, I'm at the Blazer game when it goes down, and everyone freaked out and probably thought the same thing you did, that Shams had been hacked when he put out the report that Luka had been traded. I've got to know for you, for someone who covers the league and you follow this stuff closely, like, what did you think when you first saw the report that Luka had been dealt to the Lakers for AD and a first-round pick?
Yeah, just no way. No, there's so many. I get caught on it. I get caught on it all the time with the NBA Centel and the hack Woj account, and I'm like, there's no possible way that this isn't a hack. But lo and behold, I get the call from the studio at like whatever time it was. When did it go down? Like my time, I think it was like 1:30 in the morning. 1 in the morning.
Late. Yes.
Dude, I had to jump on air like in my boxers. Had to throw the sport coat on and only film from the waist up. I had to roll out of bed. I'm like, you got to be kidding me with this. Like any trade at 1 a.m. is annoying, but Luka. I still can't get over it. Like, speaking of wives, like, when I was in college, I used to break up with who was my girlfriend at the time and now is my wife. I used to break up with her all the time. Young, dumb kid. Now, I'd always, like, really regret it afterwards when we ended up getting back together.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we got back together for good on the last time. They've got to be but I used to remember every time I'd be like, God, what, man, she's a good girl. I shouldn't do that. Like, they have to have such seller's remorse in Dallas. Like, the minute they pulled the trigger on that, like, they went out to the bar and they're like, "Yo, we're single, man." Like, no, you had Luka. Like, you had Luka. Unbelievable. I mean, they got to be just killing them. They're trying to justify it. Oh, he didn't take care of himself. Oh, my God. They've got to be just beside themselves internally.
All right, I want to play this clip for you because of a lot of things that have gone down over the last week. This is unbelievable. Patrick Dumont, Dallas Mavericks, at his press conference, sounding like he's talking to a tin can.
And if you look at the greats in the league, the people you and I grew up with, Jordan, Bird, Magic, Kobe, Shaq, they worked really hard every day with a singular focus to win. And if you don't have that, then it doesn't work. And if you don't have that, you shouldn't be part of the Dallas Mavericks. That's who we want. I'm unwavering on this. The entire organization knows this. This is how I operate outside of basketball. This is the only way to be competitive and win. If you want to take a vacation, don't do it with us.
All right, Brad, what is more amazing to you, that one, he mentioned Shaq in reference of being a hard worker, or that he didn't even talk about Dirk Nowitzki, who balled out for the Mavericks for 21 years?
First of all, You're going to have to interpret. I mean, I think I remember the quote, but there's no way I can transcribe from what he just. He sounded like one of those smoker commercials where they're like warning young smokers, like, this is my one piece of advice to you, you know, and they got like a tube in their neck.
Yes.
What is with this guy? What a loser. He gets rid of freaking Luka. This is, Chad, this would be hyperbole in any other situation. But in this situation, it fits. This is the dumbest trade since Babe Ruth was sold to the Yankees. It's the dumbest. There's no justification. It's the dumbest trade. And I bet you the Red Sox were saying that we don't want this Babe Ruth guy. Man, he's fat. He don't take care of himself. Look at this guy. He's not committed to the craft. Look at this guy. He's drinking beer. He's womanizing. Get him out of here, Babe Ruth. Unbelievable. The Mavericks aren't going to win a title for like 85 years. Stupidest trade in history. Now, listen, when I went on air that night, I had to think, okay, these guys are smarter than me. There's got to be something to it. Okay, what is? So I'm thinking everything that I can from Nico Harrison's perspective and Dallas's ownership. Let's go. Okay, Luka got torched on defense last year. Maybe in a just if I stretch the parameters of logic as far as I can, with Anthony Davis, they have more lineup versatility. They can play two bigs if Lively ever gets back, if Gafford didn't then go down, which you can't help but blame karma on this, all these injuries. How AD gets hurt in the first game. You can't script it any crazier. But the thing is, it's like this gives you like a 1 year, even if you can convince yourself that right now in the short term for the next like 3 months, this actually gives us maybe a better chance to win a title with the bigs and the lineup versatility and the defense and two-man combo with Kyrie and AD with shooters around them. There's a lot of on-paper things that you can say if you get rid of the, like, shock value of the trade and just look at it objectively. You could maybe squint and see, like, God, he's nasty, but he's 32. They're getting rid of Luka because supposedly they're projecting he won't be able to stay healthy. Tom Haberstroh, who works up there with the Blazers, he puts out a stat on Twitter that of the last 7 years, AD has had 7 absences of 10 games or more. 7. Luka's had 1. So if your whole rationale is that you're trading the guy because he can't take care of himself, can't stay healthy, and that's what you're projecting into the future, at least trade him for like the healthiest guy ever, not the guy nicknamed Street Clothes. Like the guy that can't stay healthy, that's the guy you pull the trigger on, 7 years older. It's so bad. It's so bad. And I don't believe in the cosmos much, but karma had to be involved with AD going down in the first game. Like, what are the odds? So bad. And yeah, you're right. Pulling up Shaq, one of the all-time lazy workers, overweight. It's like sometimes, dude, get out of your own way. Talent is talent. Luka could be rolling down the court with a cig in his mouth at half court. He could be sucking down Miller Lights at halftime, and he's still the best player. It just doesn't matter. They're trying to hold him to these ideals that, like, the perfect player would live up to. I don't care. Luka, show up 5 minutes before the game, eating spaghetti, bib still on. He's still dominating. Unbelievable. Dumbest trade. I still can't get over it. I feel like every day it's getting worse. Like, it sets in, like, they really did this. Like, you talk about the one that got away. I'll tell you the winner in this, Chad. The winner in this whole thing, if you think about it, is Travis Schlenk, the old Hawks GM, the first guy to ever trade Luka. Okay, he traded Luka. He was going to be living with that the rest. Now, no one's ever going to remember that Schlenk gave up Luka on draft night. Nico took the crown.
That's a good point.
The dumbest move in history. Travis, you're off the hook.
Can you imagine what was going through Rob Pelinka's mind when he realized that Nico was serious about moving Luka? Like, dude, Pelinka must have been like, dude, we got to keep this quiet, because he was like, if this gets out, like, Pelinka had to know that the Mav fans would riot and it would never go down.
So here's the best part. Pelinka, I just had to submit my mid-seasons award. I'm going on air tomorrow, mid-season award, and I couldn't bring myself to do it, but I think most people are going to. Pelinka's going to get Executive of the Year. I mean, Christ, he got Luka Doncic. He's going to get Executive of the Year. And the only thing he did is pick up the phone. He didn't even have to call and ask. Like, that would be shameful. Like, that would be blasphemy for anyone to even think that Luka was available. Like, no one would even make that call. All this guy does, reportedly, he goes to coffee with Nico. Nico calls him up and says, hey, Rob, want to go grab a cup? And the next thing you know, he's asking him if he wants Luka Doncic. I mean, Ed McMahon showed up on this guy's door with a 25-year-old generational player. He answers the door like in his pajamas. Hey, man, you want this $20 million? He's going to get Executive of the Year for this. And then he left him over enough. One draft pick. Forget the injury-prone Davis. DeJounte Murray went for 4. Mikal Bridges went for 5. One pick. They still have enough left over to go and get Mark Williams. I mean, the Lakers just stay winning. Unbelievable. Whenever they've needed something at every point in their history, here comes Wilt. Now one of the other dumbest trades. Let's get Kareem. Now here comes Magic in the draft, and then that kind of starts fizzling out. And here comes Shaq. And the Hornets, the same team you work with on Mark Lynch. Here, just have Kobe Bryant. So they have Kobe and Shaq, and then Shaq flails out, and that thing's going to hell. Here comes Pau Gasol with a trade that's so ridiculous, Greg Popovich has to call for an investigation. And then that starts to fizzle out. What happens? Rob Pelinka gets the job because he's Kobe's agent, and now LeBron wants to live in L.A. And because LeBron comes and Rich Paul, they start getting together. Now here comes Anthony Davis, and they win a title. And what does Rob Pelinka do? He gets rid of all the reasons they won the title. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, gone. Alex Caruso, gone. Dwight Howard, gone. Start signing Russell Westbrook and Montrezl Harrell and Carmelo Anthony. People are calling for this guy's head. He's probably seen as one of the worst GMs in the league. All of a sudden, Nico says, I can do it. Let's go to coffee, and you can have Luka for a draft pick and the rest of that cup of coffee on the table. Like, this guy just stays winning. Unbelievable.
It's so good. It's so good. All right. One more question about Luka. If you're going to make the deal, like, okay, so let's say you don't want to pay him $350 million. I still think you're insane, but why wouldn't you at least get like 5, 6, 7 first-round picks in return? Why?
Because
how did they not get
Nico? Nico clearly convinced himself that they want to win. Like, he even said it. I think this guy's gone. Like, this guy's like a president that's leaving office, and he just like tears the country down in the last like 2 months. There's already been reports he doesn't plan on staying here for long. Like, I think he honestly just had sort of a personal beef with Luka, and just didn't think he worked hard, didn't play defense, lazy, doesn't embody the character, all these things that you hang up on the wall of like a weight room, like, one more, whatever it takes, and all these stupid like credos. And it's like, they just thought they can still win. They don't care about the future. We're not going to set it up with 6 picks. We think we can actually become a better team right now with Anthony. And like I said, you could squint and say that with a big, big if Anthony Davis stays healthy, which has already been blown to shreds. But if, before the trigger was pulled, you could sort of make that case. They obviously decided they don't care literally about anything long term. They don't care about anything. They think this year, he even said, like, the future to me is like 2 or 3 years, whatever he said. Like, he's not thinking that they had a top 10 all-time player, drafted, hometown, homebred, that they could have had in-house. Like, this doesn't just happen. You don't go from Dirk to Luka. Like, this doesn't happen for any franchise other than the Lakers. Like, these players don't just keep showing up. You get like maybe 1 or 2 of them. Like, the Warriors got 1 Steph Curry. Like the Blazers got whoever. Drexler was not one of these players. Lillard wasn't even one of these players. Like, you don't get these guys. They had the chance at Grant. They had the chance at Jordan. Like, if you actually land on one, and a lot of things had to happen for them to land on him. The Suns had to pass on him. The Kings had to pass on him. The Hawks had to trade him to him. Like, they got it. They stole it. And they just, turned the ransom over. It just gets worse. Honestly, every day it gets worse. And the freaking Lakers, like the Lakers that are doing everything wrong, and they just end up with Luka and LeBron?
Yeah, it's crazy. One more question for you, Brad. Where do you think Kevin Durant's going to end up next year?
Good question. So it's all about, is it the best basket, or is it one of these things where he wants to live and all that? If it's basketball, then you've got to start looking at Memphis, and you've got to start looking at Houston. You've got to look at the teams that aren't going to have to deplete their depth to go out and get them. They've got assets that the Suns would want, and it doesn't deplete their depth. We saw that the top-heavy teams, it doesn't work with Phoenix. It didn't work in Brooklyn. They've got to go after one of these teams that can give up 3 really attractive young players, have the salary to match, and then they're still good. They're not giving away the farm. And I think Houston is begging for it. I really do. I was quietly hoping for a return to Golden State. I'm happy with Butler, but I think Houston I think that team's a lot closer to winning. I think people just want to sort of put them off for the next 4 years because, they seem pretty – I think they're like with a piece like Durant would be like ready now. And the thing is, I was talking about this with somebody the other day where people say, like, you got to take your time, you got to take the steps, you got to take your playoff lumps. It's like, dude, I don't know. You ever watch Friday Night Lights? Like, the best years of Tim Riggins' life were the young years. Like, life's only going downhill. And there's no guarantee that because you've got a good young team and promising prospects and you get to live in sort of that honeymoon era where you're always planning for the future. There's no guarantee. In fact, there's very little evidence that it actually does turn out the way you envision it. Like, sometimes the best years are actually the first couple years, the young years. When you're young, you keep waiting for this. It's going to happen in 5 years. It might not. Like, the Rockets are ready with one move. And I wouldn't be so quick to poo-poo youth and all that and say we got to wait our turn and go through our lumps. Like, sometimes the best years are the young years.
Interesting. Who is the biggest threat to OKC in the West? Is it Denver? Is it Houston, Memphis, or maybe the Lakers?
All of them. But I think Denver. I mean, Jokic is my MVP. He's unbelievable.
Good. I'm glad you
Jamal
said
Murray.
that because he's playing like a freaking MVP again. The guy's unbelievable.
Oh, God.
What he did in the first half again, the first 3 quarters against Portland the other night, 40 points, 8 boards, 7 assists on 15 of 22 shooting. I was watching him, Brad, and I'm like, he can't be sped up. He understands the game so well. He was reminding me of Bird with his passing and his vision, and I've grown to appreciate him. He's awesome.
He's incredible. The passing it's the anticipatory passing.
Yes,
like
anticipatory.
He's throwing guys open like a good quarterback.
Yes.
It's not open when he throws it, and he's just, man, he's got everything on autopilot. It looks like he's not even trying. So he's the best player in the league. The gap is appreciable. And I think with Jamal Murray, the whole thing with Denver is they need the second guy. And Jamal Murray is coming around to be that guy again. Goes for 50-something the other night. He's been really good for the last couple months. When he's playing like that, you know how Jamal Murray starts cooking in the playoffs. They get Aaron Gordon back. Somehow Russell Westbrook has been revitalized. Again, another feather in the cap of Jokic's MVP case. Nobody could do anything with Russell Westbrook. All of a sudden, this guy's playing like a stud. So it's the ecosystem in Denver is incredible. I really like the Nuggets. But any of those teams, it's all tiers. So OKC's in their own tier, and then you got like 9 teams. Maybe that's an exaggeration. Call it 7. If Dallas is healthy, which I know we've talked about Luka, but let's just say they're healthy. Like, they're tough. You don't want to see Kyrie and AD and Klay Thompson and PJ Washington with shooters around them and elite defense and 2 big lineups with, like, you don't want to see that. Butler and Curry, you don't want to see Luka and LeBron in a playoff series. You don't want to see Houston's defense. Memphis is really, really good. They've got guys that can get into the paint better than anyone. They score a ton of paint points, but now they have shooting with Bane back and they can spread the floor. They're balanced. I mean, I'm probably who am I forgetting that's up in the top of the Western Conference? All of these teams. I don't think Sacramento is going to make much noise. I really don't think Golden State is really in that upper echelon. I would probably put like Dallas, Denver, Memphis, and the Lakers as teams that I think are in that tier. And Houston, I think there's like 5 to 6 teams that are, and it's going to be matchups. It's going to be who's hot going in. It's going to be who's healthy. All those teams are almost impossible to separate from me.
That's awesome. All right, Brad Botkin, CBS Sports. Nothing says true love like top ramen and grilled cheese, my friend.
Dude.
That's so good.
Dude. Amazing.
Dude, you'd be doing the same thing. You'd be like Patrick DeMont at the bar if you dropped your wife. They'd be like, dude, you had Luka. What are you doing?
I'm telling you, dude. I'm out at like $1,000 dinner with some Instagram girl. Like, what am I doing, dude? I had the top ramen grill at home.
Gosh, you're the best, man. All right, we'll catch up soon. Enjoy the weekend.
All right.
Gosh. Oh, that's Brad Botkin. So good. So funny and so good. Yeah, he pretty much summarized everything. It's the worst trade since Babe Ruth. And Patrick DeMont is a complete buffoon. Nico's crazy. They're all stupid. Crazy. Psychotic. You had the wife that wanted grilled cheese and top ramen on Valentine's Day, and you traded it away for a first-round pick in AD. Good call. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Big thanks to Brad Botkin. Love him. You got the Rip City Drive. Color TV screen. If you know what I mean. Women to the left of me and women to the right. Ain't got no gun. All right, let's go to the phones. Raider Mike is on hold. I heard that he's going to be singing to people who are in love tonight at a karaoke bar somewhere in South Carolina. Let's go there right now. Raider Mike, what do you got cracking, man? You performing tonight or what?
Of course I am.
Oh, okay.
Of course I am. You're a horrible singer, by the way.
Well,
Was that
I
you
know.
trying to sing?
No, it wasn't. I wasn't me trying to sing. I was singing and doing an awful job like usual.
I'll teach you one day.
But I don't know. You can't teach someone. I don't have a singing voice. I cannot be taught how to sing well. It's just there are certain songs that I want to sing to because they make me happy, like this song right here, TNT by AC/DC.
Well, you got to get the crowd involved. It's oi, oi, oi. So the crowd's already into it. Then you go, see me rocking you out in the sunset on your television screen.
Oi,
you gotta
oi,
get that. Oi, oi, yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Anyway, no, I'm in North Carolina, bro.
Oh, well, I was told South Carolina, wherever you're at. It doesn't matter. You're in the Carolinas somewhere.
No. Yeah, but no, this is kind of key where I'm at. I'm going to be here probably 15 months cleaning this shit up.
Whoa,
Stuff
whoa,
up.
whoa, 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 whoa,
Sorry.
whoa, 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 whoa. Mike, come on.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. I apologize. No, Appalachia's playing Oregon State. And it's here. He's going to fly out.
I can't let that slide. Wait, Mike, like, man, I was all excited to have you on and talk about your performance, and we just have I can't let that slide. You call back tomorrow. Call back on Monday. Well, Shacker, you said you wanted to test the dump buttons. There was your opportunity right there. I didn't get to it in time. Raider Mike. Gosh. Oh, you wouldn't be Raider Mike if you didn't. It's on me. I should have been prepared. There are certain people in studio, on the phones, whatever the case may be. You just need to have your finger on the button. I got this little bunt right here. It's lit up red too, and it's within reach. But I wasn't prepared. I should have been prepared. It's on me. Dump button right there. You hit that, and then boom, it can solve a lot of things. Come on, Raider Mike. Whatever. South Carolina, North Carolina, whatever. It's all good. Oh, good. Shacker got the dump. We have a 20-second delay. Boy, that's good. I still need to know what the refractory period is on the dump button. If you use the entire cycle of 20 seconds, how long does it take for it to recuperate? 503-248-0620. Here's a message from the 503. Don't worry, Raider Mike can't sing either. Like I've never claimed to sing. I can't sing. Once puberty hit, my singing voice went bye-bye, bon voyage. But I like to. I'm like everyone else. I can't sing at all. But I sure like to sometimes. You could be in the shower, usually when I'm alone, sometimes on the radio, in my car often. You know, there's certain songs that just make you want to sing. AC/DC, I think they used to play TNT all the time at like Winter Hot games. But yeah, there's certain AC/DC songs where you're like, yeah, I got to sing to that. But yeah, I can't sing. That's why I admire musicians so much. They can do things that I can't even dream of. How about Brad Bach and his wife wanted top ramen and grilled cheese on Valentine's Day? That's a pretty good deal right there. Pretty good. Nice work. Oh, my goodness. All right. So what's the weather supposed to be? Are we going to get any more snow tonight? Are we done with the winter weather, for crying out loud? Because every time I see this, it just makes me want springtime to hit so we can get out on the golf course. And it looks like, yeah, no snow tomorrow. It looks like we're going to be good. And what's the extended forecast over the next 10 days? Let's check the 10-day trend. All right. Looks like just rain, temperatures, 49 Sunday, in the 50s next week. And by the 23rd, looks like we get up at around 61 degrees. No sun except for Thursday the 20th. partly sunny on that day. But yeah, temperatures over the next, this trend goes all the way out to the 28th. Temperatures in the 50s. Sunday 49. After that, it looks like 50s the rest of the way up until the end of February. So that's not too bad. All right. Yep, Raider Mike let one fly there. That's okay. That's no problem. So that's pretty much what I got cracking this weekend. I'm going to check out the All-Star game. I'm anxious to see how the conversation between the union and the players in the league will go before the game, to see if it provides any type of motivation for them to compete. I doubt it, but it's possible. But outside of that, looking forward to the combine to see how some of the players shake out. I'm most interested in Cam Scatteraboo from Arizona State because I want the Broncos to draft him. I'm excited for Travis Hunter because I like him a lot. He's a good kid, works hard, great talent, and might be one of the best overall talents in the draft for what he can do. And then for the quarterbacks, I don't know what either one of them will do at the combine, if anything, but it'll be the conversation around the quarterbacks as we near the draft will be fascinating to see what's being leaked out, what type of smoke screens are being put out there, and what teams might be looking to jockey for position and maybe move up in the draft to get the guy they want, if Ward or Shedeur is one of their guys. 503-248-0620. Let's see here. I got the message from the 503. You've given your number out so much you don't even know who these texts are coming from. Well, in some cases, that is true. I mean, my phone does get overloaded at times with text messages because, I have a lot of people that hit me up at the same time. And if I haven't saved them in my phone, I can get confused from time to time. I do know who that one's coming from, though. But, yeah. All right, there you go. That's going to do it for me. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the All-Star weekend. And then we'll get back to Blazers next Thursday.